Hi, Jocelyn. So in those course, we'll be incorporate like Scratch and Python. Scratch, well, like I mentioned, is one of very powerful tools to visualize the like it gives a better visual representations of programming is like it has all the sort of commands, it has all sort of like blocks, and combinations of these blocks will give us like an expected like performance like when you click this, and then you can do some sort of motions as well. Like when you click this, like look at this cat. When you click this, click the flag, which is right here. The cat will move by 10 steps. If you increase this, the cat moves by 50 steps, right? So Scratch, in a way or two, give us a better representations like of these combinations, right? It's basically blocks of logic, like logical blocks, and if you combine those two together, like it goes to some sort of expected output, something like that you want to represent on this console, right? In this course, again, disclaimer: we're not gonna entirely dedicate it to Scratch alone, but we also do some sort of like logical reasoning, logical programming on Python as well. So Scratch, again, is a powerful visual representations of programming, but it's not entirely dedicated to programming these sessions. Yeah. We'll apologize. Cool. So yes. So without further ado, I will open Replit. So if you missed the first sessions, in this sessions we're gonna use Replit as a way to write a Python code. Oh, share again. Can Python programming be useful in almost any life situation? Maybe like you need to stop any virus from entering your computer. It depends. It depends. You can, because Python programming is like a script. It's a script. It's a script language. It can be used for testing, unit testing. It can be used in various applications. I really cannot list all of them, to be honest. You gotta practice and experiment this on your own. You can do it on the yes. If I pronounce, I apologize if I pronounce your name wrong. Yes, you can do it on. You can use any sort of interactive environments you want to write this. Should walk along with me, as long as it can be programmed on Python. That's fine. Yeah. These are just some demonstrations you can go along. Yeah. All right. Without further ado, let's get started. So let's start for analogies from Scratch. So again, Scratch, you can, with the Scratch, you can create some variables. If you go to variable sessions, you can set these variables right here. Again, variables is nothing but like an empty box. It's like an empty box of like the placeholders. You can put some numbers or values inside the variables, and variables gonna hold it. So imagine them as like an empty box, and each is a small empty box. So whenever you put a value into it, it can only store only one value in that variable, something like that, right? Oh, it seems like we have some other questions. Yes, Ivy, you have any questions? Can you review from yesterday? Okay. App history. What part did I? When did I lose you? What part you did not understand? Um. Okay. So Max, I will show you. Well, probably I'll show everybody how to make an mastery question later. Um, and Ivy, yes, I will show you the coding order as well. But for the time being, I just want to connect some sort of, or just associate some analogies between Scratch and Python together, so that again, Scratch is visually representative, while Python is verbose. You need to write some like actual code or like your own language in there. So it's very hard. It's actually it's gonna be much easier for you to transition from something visually attractive and representative to Python programming. So again, and somebody requested some review on like Monday, so I'll do it right now. That's just a quick review because we also need to catch up with the agenda as well. So again, I'm just gonna do the paint right here. Let me go to the paint. Here we go. So again, we talk about like the concept of variables. So variables, imagine variables is nothing but an empty box right now. I'll name this as bar. The box has this name. Sorry, I'm a bad drawer. Anyway, so the box has its name. This is a variable. Imagine this is an empty box. And we can actually put any values in this empty box, say number 10, something like this, right? And it will store it within this empty box. But now let's constrain this variable. Imagine this variable is something like a small box, so it can only store in one value. So that's why variables, if you just say on Python, on Python, you can say this is x. Say you can name the variables to be any name. Say a is equal to 10, for instance, right? In this case, right? So a is equal to 10. So a variables store the values 10 inside right here, right? So if you put a is equal to 5, and when you print, let's do the prints right now. Print statement is basically one of the ways that you can actually interface with from the editor to the console, right? So you do print right now, it will work 10. But if you change a is equal to 5, for instance, you print a, something like this, then it will replace the value 5. It will replace the a will be replaced by 5, right? The value of a, which is initially 10, will be replaced by the value 5 in this case. And eventually just output only a, which is only 5, right? So a variable cannot contain more than one values. So it can only contain only one value. And if you replace them, if you assign other variables to it, then it will replace the previous assigned variables. Yeah, that's all it is. Yes, you can use any sort of developing environment you want. I use like Replit. So just search for Replit Python online IDE, and you will just get there. Yeah. So again, this is essentially what we did in the previous lectures, in the previous sessions, because we only went over some variables, we went over some print statements, we went over some like operations, variables, say a times 10, and prints like array a plus 10, so on and so forth. That is straightforward enough because these are just math operations, right? And let's run it. We got, yes, a times 10, a is 5, so 10 times is 50, and a plus 10, which is 15 right now. Cool. Awesome. Do you have any questions, comments, concern? Jocelyn, again, you can get access to this through Replit, REPL and .IZ, that's Replit. Ivy, what do you mean, like, where do you get that? What things? What this? Anyway, yes, we'll move on. So remember last time you can actually print some string, right? So again, string is basically you can store a string in a variable. So so you still wonder why variable is? Imagine variables is an empty box. So a is you can assign c is equal to string, and this is called variables in Python. Imagine this as a variables as well. In Scratch, this is called a variable. You can set the variables to see something else, right? You can set the variables to be 5, set them to be any numbers. In Python, it's pretty much the same thing. You can do that easily. Now, say you want to store a number or just my name. Say name instead is equal to Donovan, something like this, right? So now this is called a string. A string is nothing but a series of combinations of characters, right? So, and I stored it in a variable called name, right? And I want to print this out, name, right? So this will get me all the sort of operations of Bob and Donovan. Optionally, I can do this like just coming out the variables, the other operations, and then this will leave me only Donovan, right? So I guess yes. So if you want somebody to enter your name, this is what you should do. Yeah. I just we just like what we did is just we reviewed the previous sessions, what we go over in the previous sessions. We went over the variables and operations. We also went over like histories of computers, and now we're gonna start something new. Right, got it. Joyce Lin. You can walk along now. You can actually walk along with me, right? Like just put this thing, put these comments on your own desk and experiment along with that. Cool. So say I want to print. So say you see if I have like another name right here. So say name 2 is equal to dot. So name 2 is equal to say A B C D or track something like that tree, right? So when I print name 2 right now, so let's do it. So if we print name 2, you see the Donovan first, the first name, the name, this variables will be printed first, and it will automatically go to the next line, right? So now this is exactly what it does. So the print statements will go to the next line after it prints the name, right? It goes to the next line, and then it goes to the next line. It prints the name too, right? So now, what if I don't want that? What if I don't want this sort of behavior? I want to print Donovan and Tran on the same line. So what should I do? Well, one simple trick I could do is that instead of using two prints, I could combine them in one print. I say name, comma, and name 2. By that way, this will give me Donovan Trent. And if you don't know what the comma does, it's basically implicitly does it implicitly does a spacing for you. So if you observe two strings, Donovan and Trent, neither of them have the strings at the trailing space or the leading space, right? But by putting like a comma in between those two strings, it will implicitly output you a space, right? So this is potentially one of the things that you could do to print two strings on the same line instead of writing down two separate prints. This is essentially one of the operations that you could go along with. Yeah. Cool. Awesome. Max, you got a questions? You can write on the chat. Then the name. We'll use right hello on the name. But so you can implicitly do that. So say you want to write hello the name, so just do hello and then comma again. If you do comma, it implicitly tells you like this is okay. I'm going to implicitly output you a space in between hello. Then you put the name right here. Hello, Donovan. Hey, awesome. So what if you try to say, do you have any put the quotations before after the names? Not necessarily, because you already defined the name as you with the quotation. So just to get one thing straight, so the quotations is used to encase a string. Encase a string. So whenever you want to create a string, to create a string, right? So whenever you write, like, say Donovan, if you don't put a quotation mark around here, this will output an error. See, name Donovan is not defined, right? So if you don't put the quotations around this, Python won't understand this as a string. It will understand this as a variable. And you see, if the variable is not defined, then it will give you an error, right? So a go-to solution for this is to put a quotation. Remember, if you want to like make a text or something like that, just put a string. It's always saved. Just put a quotations. It's always saved to put a quotations around. So let's run it again. Hello, Donovan. Yeah. Cool. Pitch rate 9, 10 is basically you're putting like the Donovan, which is a string, onto the name. So basically, so if you think about this, this is a name, right? This is a name. So this is a name. So name is more like a variable. Again, like I mentioned, a name is more or less a variable. It's an empty box. And on line 9, it's basically assigning, or sorry, it's basically putting or assigning Donovan into the box. So that variable can store the Donovan string. That's what it would call, right? And you can use that variables for some other various reasons, right? You can do it to do operations. You can do it for many other operations as well. Cool. I'll leave the questions for now and continue the sessions. For the time being, say I want to say name, right? And I want to put name 2 on the next line, right? So now I want to output Donovan twice on the same line. Naturally, the answer will be put in name and then name on the next right here, right? This would output Donovan twice on the same line, right? What if I want to output 3 Donovans on the same line? I would just put a common name, right? And this would output 3 Donovans on the same line. Okay, so I want to print Donovan 100 times. Would I put the comma name 100 times? Would it be a little bit cumbersome back then? So a go-to solution to this problem is to basically multiplies. So multiplies by say 100. So let me explain this. So name is a string. Name is a variable that stores Donovan string, right? And the goal is to output Donovan string 100 times on the same line. Essentially, what you could do instead of like putting a common name 100 times, that's tedious, that's cumbersome. You can do the multiplications 100 here. Well, 100 is basically the number of times you specify that the number of times you want to print Donovan names. So let's try this thing. So let's try only 10 for the sake of simplicity. Cool. So we successfully write Donovan 10 times on the same line. And just ignore it. It automatically goes to the next line because the canvas is just this. But if you just screen it a little bit, you see Donovan is basically printing on the same line. Yeah, that's essentially how it works. You do it 100 times or 10,000, just do it that 10,000 times. You see that this abominations is giving you 10,000 Donovans there, right? Cool. Any questions? Okay. I get the screen you're on. Okay. Don't we need to declare the variable type before the name of the variable, like in float in characters? Not necessarily. Again, like I mentioned, Python is very primitive. It's not sorry. It's not primitive. It's very basic. It's very dynamic. So you don't need to declare a variable type before you declare. You don't need to declare a data type before a variable. In some language was like Java or C++, naturally you need to declare a variable type like int name, stuff like that. In Python, if you do that, like in Python, if you do like int name is equal to 8, you most likely get errors. And you see the errors right now is, you see you mostly get the errors because there's another line, red line right there. So go to solutions is to not declare a data type. A variable in Python can store multiple data types. What I should say, can store multiple data types. Yes. So say you can actually, put a lot of data types in between and it would. Unlike Java or C++, this this Python programming language is very dynamic, robust. Cool. Can you make word bigger? Max, you have a questions? You have a questions? How how do you make you enter your name and then say hello your name? Yes, I'll go over it in a few minutes. Can you make word biggest? Yes, you can actually make the word biggest. There are some operations on string you can actually do. So say I want to do upper, something like this. This will make name Donovan much bigger. Donovan, something like this. And you can also do lowercase. So imagine something like Donovan in this case. I want to have lowercase, so you can just do lower. Donovan, yeah, something like that. Cool. Can we use other operations with string? Yes, you can definitely use other operations with string as well. Upper and lowercase are just like methods available in string. You can definitely do operations with string. Like other operation on string, like name plus name2 is also acceptable. This is what we call string concatenations. Called string concatenations, right? Right. Previously we talked about like how we do multiplication with string, right? If you do Donovan and then you 10 to 10, it prints Donovan on the same line 100 times, right? But now you do string name and name plus 2. This would do string concatenation. Okay, I'm trying to spell that. Donovan Trent. Cool. The name of the website is Replit. IV, you do that is Replit. I'm gonna type on this panel right now so you can actually see it. Cool. Yes. So to continue with the lectures, let's so to answer Max questions, Max he asked me how can you like ask the user to input something, right? So this operation is called I/O processing. I/O processing. Well, I/O for I stand for input and O stand for output processing. Okay, let me explain why. Before I go to think, let me explain why. So you previously know what is print, right? Print is basically a form of output processing. Why is output processing? Because basically you're interfacing from the editor to the console. So you basically you output whatever you're writing, whatever the program you're writing, or whatever you think you assign to the print statement onto the console. So that's an output processing. That's an instance of output processing. Now you may wonder, what is an input processing? What is that? Input processing that now? Well, if output processing is like a one-way communications between the editor, which is a white screen we have here, and the black screen, right, which is a console. Then input processing is the reverse. You can definitely input something from the console to the program. How? Let me do that. How can I do that? So I'm gonna do is first. I would just want to comment this out, just make sure that we're not gonna deal with those like previous examples. So say I want to enter my name input names equals. Again, this is the assignment operators. This assign whatever we're gonna do. So we're gonna do something like input. Like enter your name, and then we're gonna print. You have entered, and then I can just gonna put this thing as name. Cool. So with these two lines of code, let me run it. I successfully do the input processing. So what we're gonna do is gonna enter your name, Jedi. Say Jedi. So after that, when you enter Jedi and you press enter, the Jedi, the string that you enter from the console will be stored in the name variable. And then in your program, you're gonna use the name variables to, basically in your print statement, right? So these two lines, the difference between two lines is that this is handle input processing from your console to your editor. Well, this print statement handles the output processing from your editor to your console. That is essentially what it does. Ironically, say here's some edge cases examples of input processing. So, but before we go on with some other examples of input output processing, do you have any questions, comments, concerns so far? Let me try to do this again. You have any questions, comment, concern? Nope. Awesome. Okay. How do you make it say how are you? Like yeah, you just need to like do when say how are you? Like oh you say how can you like how can you make it like a decision structure? Say if I enter your name, you have enter Jedi, and then if I enter Jedi, say how are you, and something like that, right? So that is going to be something we might go over in next sessions. In the next session, we're going to talk about a decision structure. We're going to use like sort of commands called if and else if statement in order to make a decision structures in a program. But essentially, that's not something I would like to go in this session because we're trying to go slow, steady on like variables, and we go right around with that. Yes, Arisha, definitely we can show you how to change the output from change the name from the string from lowercase to uppercase. So say you have entered Jedi, right? So I can do name and then the dot, something like this, lowercase or uppercase rather, uppercase or upper, something like this. This would change my name from Jedi, Jedi like from lowercase or not completely lowercase to uppercase. So let's run it. Like Jedi. See, all Jedi's uppercase, right? So if we want to change it to lowercase, for instance, then just use lower. And then let me print all uppercase Jedi. Then print Jedi. Yeah. Quick questions. How many classes do we have in total? We're gonna have only 11 sessions. So essentially, if I essentially the goal is just trying to cover some basics of decision structures, for loops, while loops, whenever possible. But because like we only have 11 sessions available, and this is a second sessions, so the pace of the class is going to be pretty fast, and I'm trying to accommodate for a lot of like students as well with different levels of experience. So yeah, so bear with me. If you just don't get it, bear with me. I already linked you guys to the book that like on the chat. There's a book that I want like the students to read and maybe like just to get a knack of what programming and history computer really is. It is really awesome to read about these and get used to this sort of programming. We're gonna use Scratch along the way, just a way to visually demonstrate how things would work, so that you can have like a feelings like or have a knack for knack that's like you guys know like how to handle or how to basically write a program your own. Yeah, awesome. Can you post the book link here again? Yes, I think I just posted right here. Cool. All right then let's move on. So we have already learned about string, like we learned about like all the sort of like variables. We learned for that. So let's sum up for what we have learned so far. So we learned about variables. We learned about how variables is like an empty. It's more like an empty box to begin with, and then we want to like put into that box something like a value. Say variable is more like a case, right? Or like a case. You want to put money in there, right? You want to put in money in there, and you want to lock it, right? Unless, and especially this case is not really that secure. You can always change the money. You can actually take money out as much as you like, right? So you can think about it that way, yeah. And we learned about how we can actually use these variables to print out something on the console. Remember, some terminologies. This is the editor, or whatever you write your program on is essentially called editor, developing environment, some other names, so on and so forth. And whatever you print it out is called console or terminal. One is usually use console, just one of the ways for you to interact with that as well. Okay, so we perform operations on like some numbers, like like maths. Just like math, you can also perform some operations on these easily. Learn about strings. Essentially, this is a string. String. If you want to define a string, you must put the quotations around it. Otherwise, Python won't interpret that as a string. It will interpret that as something differently. It will interpret it as a variable, like an undefined variable. It will give you an error. That's the case. So remember, when you want to create a string, just put quotations. Yes. We learned also about string concatenations. Is basically like you can actually perform some operations on string. Some students may also ask me whether you can actually perform subtractions or divisions on string, and the answer is no. That is not feasible. The only two string operations you want to perform on is the multiplications and the addition. So say you have again. Let's go back. Say I have a string name. Name is Donovan, right? I maybe just need to comment this thing, decomment this, and I want to print, say Donovan, say minus, say Tran, something like this. Donovan minus name 2, right? I can just put this thing as name. Sorry, just put name minus name 2. This would definitely spells me an error, right? I'm either gonna do divisions in this case. I cannot do name 2, which is Donovan divided by 4. This would also spells me an error. It's basically unvalid operations. So the only valid operations you can do on string, or so far, is multiplications. You do this, then it will print Donovan's on the same line 4 times. And I'm sorry, this is not really that legible, but yeah, right? So you can also do concatenations. So you can concatenate name Donovan with name 2, and this will give you Donovan with basically sticking those two names together. A common analogy I would like to tell students is that imagine string as like a sticky rice. Imagine string as like a sticky rice. Yeah. Imagine string as rice cake, more like rice cake, right? Is sliceable, is sticky, right? So you can always like combine those two together because they're sticky, right? That's one analogy you can always think of. Alrighty. Is there any questions? Alright. So far, no. Okay. So we can go on to the next one. So I know this could be a cluster, so I'm trying to make some spaces between so that like you guys can have like something to work on later. Alright. Let's talk about string slicing. Because the session is short, I'm trying to provide you guys as many utilities as much as possible so that you guys can actually work on your own, do some projects, do some programming on your own. That's totally beneficial for your own learning purposes. So yeah, I'm gonna show you. Oh, wait. The session is an hour long, so we only have 2 sessions in a week, and each session is an hour long, so it's not really that much. Yeah, so that's why. Cool. So let's talk about what is it called? String slicing. Oh, again, string is sticky. Yeah, again, string is like a rice cake. Is sticky. Is delicious. Forget about delicious, but yes, it's sticky. It's sliceable, right? Just like cake, it's sliceable, right? It's also sticky as well. So essentially, if you have a string name, like name is equal to Donovan, right? You can slice a string. Say I want to get the first characters of Donovan instead of like printing out the entire string named Donovan. I want to get the first character of Donovan, which is a D, right? So what I can do is that I can just put a square bracket over here and I put 0. And for the time being, you don't know you don't need to know what the 0 means. I'll just run it and see to verify. See? It gives you D, which is the first character of Donovan. Let's change 0 to 1. now we'll give you O. Change the zero, change 1 to 2, so on, so forth, and this will give you like N, right? So now you may wonder, what in what universe is in what universe are these characters are working on, right? So what are these numbers represent, right? So these numbers is basically what's called index. What we call index. So the index is basically represent the positions of the characters that made up of a sequence of like string. So string, let me define string again. String is nothing but a sequence, or is a sequence of combinations of characters, right? So different characters like this D characters plus the O characters plus the N characters made up of what we call string, right? So because string is a rice cake, is delicious, is delicious, it's called is sliceable, and it's very sticky, right? So you can actually try to slice a string like characters by characters, right? And the way how we can actually do the slicing is we're gonna make this concept called index, which basically represents the positions of the characters in the string. And you may come across index in other programming languages before, but for those who don't know what index or what exactly is a string or what exactly index usually stands for, is basically just the representing the position of the characters in the string, and not only the position of the character in the string. It basically represents the positions of an element within the sequence. We'll talk about the expanded terminology later, but for the time being, just know that the index itself represents the positions of the characters in the string. Okay, so again, if the index represents the positions of a character in the string, right? So why and the first element, what we human language call, we do math, right? First is always associated to 1, right? Why the first element of D is represented as 0 and not is represented as 0 and not 1, right? We always associate the word first to number 1, right? First is always number 1, second is always number 2, right? Why? In order to extract this D element, this D characters, we need to use index 0, because computer actually starts counting at 0. It does not start counting at 1, and this is often is definitely one of the most confusing parts of the computer language or computer programming. And some beginners can feel this very intimidated and often feel a little bit confused of why this works. So again, let me recite. Computer starts counting at 0, not 1. It starts counting at 0. Why? Probably playing a computer scientist who made this computer. But yes, again, computer starts counting at 0. So 0 represents the first element of the of the string. So again, index 0 is representing the D. Okay, probably not gonna do that again. Index 1 representing O. Index 2 representing the N characters, so on and so forth, right? So that's one of the reasons why if we do the D right here, like name and square bracket 0, we get a D character instead, right? Instead of the we get the D character instead, right? So this is an instance called string slicing, and I know this is confusing at first, but if you try to recreate this code, just understand the context, just understand the text of writing right here, and just play around with the sort of this numbers, you'll figure it out. I'll just put that as 5 right here. So you put a 5, and let's start counting the index. D is at index 0, O is at index 1, N is at index 2, A is at index 3, B is at index 4, and A is at index 5. So that's actually the reason why when you name square bracket 5, it gives you an A, a character's A. right? That's essentially how it was. Cool. How much time to this class in? From the time you ask me these questions, it'll be like 24, the next 24 minutes. But now when they answer it, it's probably like around the next 15 minutes. Yeah. I haven't erased any of my code ever since the session started, and every time I put more code, it didn't show up. Is it because I had too many code, and do I have to erase some of my code? Not exactly. So the reason why you didn't see your code again, probably because you didn't create an account on Replit. So you need to create an account on Replit in order to really save your code. So that's why if you create an account on Replit, just like what I did over here, you can probably save your code. So if you chose Replit to be the one environment you're gonna program your Python code on, you better want to create an account. Cool. Okay, cool. So let me run the program. So say again, Idris, do you understand like the concept of indexing or slicing in this context? Okay, cool, got it. I was trying. Okay. Yeah. So you said you were trying to run the program on the black thing. So you were trying to interface with the console. Am I right? Okay. So the one thing you can interface the console again is with the output processing. That's basically with the output processing right here. Let me just put like comments right now. Would you make a random letter or number generator? I will, but we haven't learned about the random library yet. We haven't learned about the random library, so I would not like introduce in the sessions, but I will in the future sessions. We'll talk about like random generators, random libraries in other sessions, aka next week. Yeah. So again, to answer Idris' questions, this again is the input processing, and this again is aligned to output processing something. You have always been you've always used the output processing, which is most commonly in the form of printing. Print statement is a form of output processing where you want to input something, like you basically want to interface between console and the editor. It's best to have the input right here. Okay, so let's do enter your name. I'll say Donovan, and yeah, you have enter Donovan. Cool. Awesome. Is there any other questions? Oh, name 6. So yes, if you do the name 6, it will get you the last element of this character. So say, let me comment this thing out. Cool. Right, N, right? So what happened if you do the game name 7, right? Because this is a length with this is a length. This is it's a string with a length of 7. So what happened if you do slicing the name square bracket 7? Would it give you the last element? We'll see. No, it give you an error. It give you an error instead. Why? Well, because remember, computer starts counting at 0, right? So if this is a 0 index, this is the first index, this N is second index, this A is the third index, this V is the fourth index, this A again is the fifth index, and it's the sixth index, which you previously saw that if we put name 6, it input the N as the last element, then it would put a name 7. It would get an outbound. It say, see the error, string index out of range. So if you do try to slice something that you don't have permission to, or you try, say, imagine this is a rice cake, right? You try to slice something, you try to slice like the rice cake off of the dishes. You don't actually slice the rice cake, you actually slice nothing. Then it would just do nothing, right? It not only would it do nothing, it would also give you an error, which is faulty, right? So, okay. Yeah, so I just want to show you this kind of error because it's kind of confusing. The fact that I just introduced that computer starts getting at 0, and then you always want to make sure that you don't slice things off the index. Yeah. Are we going to learn how to make a mini game? Probably. I will try to see. I will try to see if we can actually cover some more materials and concepts necessary to write a mini games. But definitely, mini games on this Replit is totally doable. yeah, we can make a chess game. We can make like any sort of like games, as long as we can, as long as you guys are supplied with enough knowledge and utilities and necessary to build a game. So yeah, it is totally doable. You showing me on top the part about x equals 5. Yeah, a is equal to 5. Yes, in this case, a is equal to 5. This is assignment. This is basically the assignment. Like there, this is what they call assignment. Assignment. The equal sign is called the assignment operator. It's basically when you're trying to like put a certain kind of numbers into a variable. So that's called you are assigning a number into a variable. So that's actually how it works. Okay, so how do you make a mini games? Are variables different from JavaScript? Unfortunately, I don't know too much about JavaScript. I did a bit of HTML, but that's not really my cup of tea. I don't do JavaScript. How do you make mini games? Well, there are various utilities you can use to make some games. Like you can actually make games in using Turtle like graphics. You can actually read books on this book, and I think in this book they actually teach you how to make games on turtles. I just don't remember. I read it like a long time ago, which I just don't remember which graphics library they use to make some games. But definitely, if you read the books, you try to go over along with this. You see, there's an object-oriented simple graphics programming right now. If you're interested in graphics designs and gaming designs and stuff, read this book. Recommend reading this book. You'll learn a lot. You'll learn a lot on your own, and you can also learn a lot from the others as well. Stack Overflow. There's a bunch of resources available right now online. You don't even need to go to school. Yeah, let's face reality. For example, you don't need to go to school. Things are virtual. Yes, it's sad, but yes, that's the reality. All right then. Uh, are you also comparing to giving your work with CPU, TSSA? Not really. I am an electrical engineer, but I work closely with more like microcontrollers, sensors, and many other like electronic devices, like on like distance sensors, like heat sensors. Like a flex sensors, more something like that. So not mostly with CPU. I understand about this, like the computer theories on CPUs, all the sort of hardwares, how these hardware are connected, how the computers are made of, but not necessarily I work on developing those components. Yeah. Can I show you my project? Can I show you my code? Yes, definitely. If given some time, I can help you critique your code or show you some projects so that you can always improve on. Yeah, but definitely just email me or something. I would reply them. Hopefully, when I got some time at night. Yeah. Hi, Keshav. Thank you for coming. Yes, Max, you can definitely show me the thing you made in Python. Yes. Um, share email with us. Yes, you can share. I can. This is my email address. This is my email address. Should you need to find me, it's dontr 710 at gmail.com. If there's an overloading of email, I might never be able to respond them in a timely manner. But I'm trying my best to give you the best response that I could. Oh, okay. Okay. Oh yeah, yeah. I will save it. I'll save it because yeah, I'll save it so that I can always open it later. Sticky notes. Cool. Awesome.
Yeah, Mom, when you hear your name.
Oh, I see. Oh, okay. Okay, that's cool. Yeah, I'll right now I don't want to share on with other people as well. If anything, yeah, I will see it on my runtime, then I'll probably critique that. Yeah. Alrighty. Yeah. With this, Okay, so another variations I want to tell you is that like, say you want, so say I have like a bunch of strings. So say I have a bunch of string like this. Instead of having a Donovan, you can actually have a bunch of strings. Something so random. I don't even care pronouncing it because definitely so random. Anyway, with this, now the question is, how do we get the last element? How do I extract the last characters of this string? Which I know A, but I want to extract it like using, programming, right? I just want to extract it. How do I print this, the last character of this some funky string out to the console? What should I do? So with other programming language, you can like you can have the options to calculate the length of the string, and then if you minus one, you will get like the last characters of that of the string, right? Yeah, but in Python, there's an awesome utility you can do. You put -1 inside. You put name square bracket -1. You get this. Hey, so you don't get an error. You won't get an error. In contrast, it's actually different from JavaScript or C++ or C or Java, something like that. You won't get an error in this case. In fact, if you do like name of -2 right now, you will get the second to last characters in the string. You get the S instead. You do -3, so on and so forth. You will get this characters, which is the third to second to last characters. Pretty cool. It's dynamic, is robust, is awesome in various aspects. Yes, I just Python is pretty cool. That's why it's simple, it's very beginner friendly. But at some point when you write, because it's simplicity, you can always make some very complex code, like just based on such simplicity, or with all these utilities that Python provided, because it just hides away the layers and complexity, everything in there. In other programming language, well, definitely if you do something like this, you definitely get like you already commit a greatest sin ever. You get like index array of bound, or sometimes you got like memory stashing because you accidentally access the region memory that is not, you don't have permission, so you're not supposed to. Sometimes this could get you like, I know some hackers, I believe, what it usually use is called buffer overflow attack. Buffer overflow attack. Buffer goes and data into the buffer, also corrupt data values in memory. So you do something like that. At some point, if you know about hackings and stuff, you can, basically alter a piece or a segment of memories in the system. You can cause a buffer overflow attack. You can hack a system by making a buffer overflow attack. So sometimes, this is faulty this is very faulty in other programming languages. Especially in C, where it doesn't even check for array index out bound. In Java, if you do that, it will give you an error immediately. But in C, it does not do this. It does not do the array index out bound. Right? It doesn't do that because it's very primitive. So if you do that, you do something like this. You access a region of memory inside your computer or inside your program that you're not supposed to have, and then you can actually, corrupt the data and values. Causes various problems. Yeah, especially you do see you have like name of buffer something buffer, and you have like 50, right? So buffers are stored within the memory of regions, right? There's a piece of like is what it should call like a memory map, memory map or memory hierarchy, hierarchy. Yeah, either memory hierarchy. Do something like this. So there's a segment of memory. There's a segment of memory. Oh my goodness, I should zoom. Okay, zoom this thing out. So there's a segment of memory dedicated for the buffer, and it's stored in the main, or stored in the SRAM or DRAM. It's stored in static. It's stored in static memory. It's stored in static SRAM memory. So basically, you can get access to that static memory. And if you have a buffer of 50, but you accidentally write 100 characters in it, then C doesn't check for it. It will basically, there'll be an buffer overflow in your cache memory or static RAM memory. And eventually, it causes various data corruptions, value corruption, so on and so forth. Yeah. It's just like an extra topic because pretty end of the lessons, it's just an extra topic for you to know more about this. Essentially, yeah, it's not something you guys might be interested in, but yes, just food for thought. Say it. Yeah. A white end. Lua? No, I don't know about Lua. I know about Lua. Yeah, I don't know about Lua. I'm just doing some C and C++, some game development. When you got when you got to C and you got to C++, you can develop something like this. You can work on Linux development. So what I usually do is that I work on the Linux development environment where you can actually organize your data efficiently. So Linux is very efficient. That's unlike Windows and Mac. It costs it takes a lot of cycles, like graphic cycles, in order to get to something, right? But with Linux, you don't need there's literally no graphics on Linux machine, right? There is some to handle. This is Ubuntu. This is the virtual machines I use, but literally the workspace I use in order to develop my program or softwares does not take any graphics memories. So that's why it's very efficient for me to develop a kind of softwares I like to write. Yeah, I can just write anything on here and just write a C program on this piece of software easily, something like this. Oh my goodness, yeah, something like that. This is a template I created, but it's very organized. Sometimes you can do a lot on a sort of different platform, different environments. Yeah. All right. I guess that's about it for the sessions. It's already 5. Yeah, the next session starts next week's Monday. Yeah, class is done. Yeah. What is this thing on your screen that says Lenovo? Oh, because I'm using Lenovo. No, I think I'm using ThinkPad, but I don't know why it shows Lenovo on that. I don't know. In my opinion, I know maybe HTML could be harder to learn. HTML could be harder to learn. Because you got some scripted stuff. You go to go to the how can I open that segment? How can I open that? So if you go to Google Chrome, you do something like inspect or view space source. You see there'll be other HTML file right here. You see the HTML bunch of HTMLs code over here. I think if you do view page source, you can actually see it better. See, this is HTML. I think this is HTML. Yes, this is essentially the HTML thing that I'm using right now. Yeah. HTML is I don't know. I tried doing some HTML, but it did not long. It did not long. I like things a bit more low level. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, just some food for thoughts. See you Monday. Cool. Thank you for coming to the sessions. I'll see you on Monday. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks. Bye, Ryan. Thank you. Bye. Bye, Idris. Have a good weekend. Yeah. Oh, I mean, this Wednesday. Sorry. Yeah. Bye. See ya. Bye, Lydia. Have a good evening. You too. Thank you, Travis.